Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
I'm glad that you're in the room today because we have quite a lineup and I am super excited to get to it. So welcome. I'm Catherine White, your host, bringing you the guests, the issues, the action, and we fuel the grassroots to get things done. And yes, it's us. So we make politics fun. So get your coffee. Hope you're all perked up. I got my cup here. Maybe you got a big sandwich. If you do, show us your sandwich. I always love to see what everybody's snacking on. And this week we are going to own the narrative. And I can't wait to bring up the guests because let's talk about like calling out the bullshit and how we're going to do it. And for that, I want to call up our first lineup of guests from Sierra Club, the Virginia chapter, Tim Cywinski and Paige Wesselink, who's going to sing her way into the room. Paige, Tim, welcome. Tell us about how you're going to own things today.
Thank you, Catherine. It's always great to engage with you all, and I got to say, we have like a little podcast ourselves, but we're really jealous of your production value of everything that's going on. Really, what a way about that.
We could help you own that, Chet. We could help.
Well, thanks. And yeah, I think Boss That Shit might be the name of our next episode. So also just thank you very much for having us.
Like it.
Yeah. So so I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm Tim Cywinski. I'm the communications lead, the Sierra Club Virginia chapter. And my partner in justice, as we like to call it.
The partner in justice. I'm Paige Wesselink. I'm digital outreach coordinator for the Sierra Club Virginia chapter.
Yeah, thank you for telling us all that. And I'm so glad you're going to be here because one thing we really going to have fun with. So let's prepare our guests for your segment. We had talked about doing a fun little educational game. I know you have some social media posts where you talk about how to respond to people that may be trying to break down what you're saying. So let's say in the room, what do we want people to do? Maybe a few people that really have had some issues with responding the right way about a certain issue. So tell them, go ahead, give them the lesson, then later we'll do it when we have our time together.
Right. So, our opposition oftentimes tries to do this mental trick where they try to make you feel bad for not being selfish. And you can hear this all the time. Like, I don't want my taxpayer money going to X, Y, or Z. Actually, I'm just on the radio like 2 days ago, I heard someone saying, I don't want my taxpayer money going to give free lunch to kids in school. And like they put you in that corner where you're supposed to like feel bad about actually wanting that child to have some quality of life and to have the same chances that everyone else should have and be access to. And so that's really what the crux of this. Climate movement and environmentalists tend to get bogged down in science, facts, and figures. And we lean too heavy on that and not lean enough into values. And values can take a lot of different forms. We can always talk about quality of life. We can talk about fairness. And most of all, we have to talk about justice because that's what people inherently understand. So no one should have to no family deserves to have to breathe poison air. Everyone deserves access to clean drinking water. In fact, Paige has this great line where she says, access to clean drinking water should never be up for negotiation.
Yes.
And that's the place you want to do is make sure that we're not playing defense. We're the ones who are playing offense.
I know. So let's give them the homework. So we want them to prepare for our segment later. So let's tell the guests in the room, if you have something you've been struggling to respond to, when we do our segment later, Paige, right? We will maybe tackle a few of the hard ones. I don't want to get too deep now. We're just saying hello and giving homework. All right.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Sounds good. Right, Paige? All right. So get your homework ready. So a few of you can put it in the chat later or send it to Tim and Paige now. and give them your best. Like, I have a hard time replying to this. Send it to them now, and then they'll come up later and help you figure out how you're going to own that stuff. All right, next up, I'm excited to welcome the organizers. One from Loudoun, from Freedom, Virginia. We have Vanessa Borg, and we have JENAYA Moore from the Richmond, from Freedom, Virginia. Welcome to you both. How are you guys doing today? JENAYA.
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're great. And Vanessa, good to see you in Loudoun. How's Loudoun? Hey. What's going on in Loudoun today?
Loudoun's doing well. Still trying to get people out for the primary that's happening on the 20th. I'm going to drop a link in the comments to
nice. To somebody?
Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead. Drop that link.
Yeah, we're canvassing this weekend for Russet Perry, Senate District 31. Yeah, please join us if you can.
Well, I'm excited to talk about what Freedom Virginia is doing. I just saw in Twitter some truck you were driving around that had some kind of language, some messaging on it. So we're going to own that.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm excited to learn more about it. All right, JENAYA and Vanessa, thank you for being here. And next up, I'm so excited to have one of our own. Rose Fabia is here, activist, member of We of Action and Beyond Arlington. Rose Fabia, are you feeling fabulous? Oh, I love your dress. Let us get a look at that. What an awesome dress. Now, do you wear that canvassing?
Once in a while I do, but mostly at gatherings with WOFA so that you pump everybody up. This actually is a shirt, I'll put it as a dress, and it's called Sheroes. Because women are heroes.
Yeah, you have to own it. Like when you wear it, it's sort of part of this narrative it's funny because it is about speaking. It is about how we talk about ourselves. It's also sometimes how you show up.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I show up with canvassing. Yesterday I was showing up, poll greeting for my candidate, Carissa Degani-Taffy for Commonwealth Attorney. And right next to me was J.D. Spain for County Board. And we had a great time. Right,
great. You're bringing it. I'm so excited to talk to you today about how you have that special skill at the door that some of us struggle with. So super for you and great dress and great, good looking to be, also. So last up, this is very exciting. Special guest with us, Jess Craven. Jessica, do you go by Jess or Jessica? I was looking at your profile.
I go by either. You can call me Jess or Jessica. It's equal opportunity.
I love it. And we are excited. TikTok sensationalist here with us, influencer. And we have such a great TikTok community in this room as well. And so important to own the narrative and you do right on TikTok.
I do. Yeah, I do on TikTok and on Substack and a bunch of other places. But yeah, I do. I try.
I'm excited. We have a lot of new people in the room. And so we want to welcome them. And if you have fans in the room, if you're here for Jessica and you're a fan or you follow her on TikTok, give a thumbs up. Let's just see how many new people we have in the room. We do want to welcome, we have been doing this since 2017, and then we started our media podcast about 3 years ago, just to sort of make sure we stay in community. We're so glad to welcome you in our community today, and we can't wait. Fennell is just so excited to do this interview. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here too.
Oh, great. And speaking of Fennell Norton, let's bring her up and see what's on your mind. When we talk about owning the narrative, well, that's what you work on mostly every day. So how are you feeling and what's on your mind today?
Well, I have a bunch of stuff on my mind today, and some of it's very exciting. So I'm really excited when we bring up our new interns. So I'm going to wait for that. But I'm also really excited because this weekend is Juneteenth. And so as a bunch of stuff is going on, I'm really excited about this celebration. We know that President Biden made it a federal holiday, and it's also a federal holiday in Virginia. So I want to remind folks about that, to take action, go to an event, pick up a wonderful book that teaches you something, watch a movie. And the book that I'm recommending is The Color of Law. So I'll have Dennis put that in the chat and send it out for folks, but it'll be a wonderful history lesson on why this is so important.
No, I know. As we head into this weekend, I mean, I want to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. This is a big weekend. Time to get your, as we say, barbecue lit up. It's funny to see the difference between Mother's Day and Father's Day. It's sort of like, I think we should switch them where we get to barbecue for moms and maybe go out to restaurants for dads. It seems like, just mix it up once in a while, but happy Father's Day to all those out there. And also I'm just excited, like you said, to let's bring up our interns. One thing about the opportunity on the Power Lines, what we try to do is share our platform. Allison Bonnier, you're here. Good to see you. Allison, all the way from Maryland. So go ahead and unmute yourself. Say hi, introduce yourself.
I'm Allison Bonnier. I'm a sophomore in high school from Marysville, Maryland.
Yeah, and then we have Claire. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Claire Cho. I'm a rising senior at Rockbridge High School.
Woo, yes, and we're excited because you guys are going to be spending some time with us. Hopefully we'll be a good influence on you. So I want to ask each of you, because we always like to know what's maybe on your mind. We've been talking about some issues that are of importance. Let's start with Claire. Claire, what's on your mind today?
Recently, I know that last week we've had some air quality issues here in Virginia. And I know that's from like the Canada fires, and that came from, global warming, and it's contributing it too.
Yeah. So what a great place with the Sierra Club in the room today. I'm sure we have a lot of interesting facts about what's going on with climate. And Allison, again, so happy to have you both. What is on your mind?
Given that it's Pride Month, I've been thinking a lot about all of the anti-LGBTQ legislation on the rise across the country. According to the Human Rights Organization, as of May 2023, there's been about 520 anti-LGBTQ bills proposed in state legislators. That's just like a horrifying statistic to see that many attacks on LGBTQ rights in our country.
Yeah, it was great. Did you happen to see Joe Biden kind of talk about that? Did you catch any of it on the news? I don't know.
I saw a few on Instagram.
Yeah. Oh, see, that's why we have younger folks in high school and college on our show, because when we talk about owning the narrative, we have to own it on every level. You guys are an Instagram. Do you both do TikTok?
I'm on TikTok a little bit, yeah.
A little bit. How about you, Claire?
Same here, just a little bit.
So we got, yeah. Oh, so Instagram is your vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So let me ask him a question. So when you guys talk about TikTok, when you say on it, do you mean actually doing a TikTok or watching TikTok? So do you watch more TikToks than you do TikToks?
For me, it's just watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I don't really produce that many TikToks.
Yeah. I'm a kind of a little bit of a TikTok addict. I think I watch it a lot. Anyways, we are so glad that you guys were with us. And so I do want to talk about democracy for now. When we're talking about next week, let's talk about that show next week. I'm so excited about it and why it's so important.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I am bursting with excitement for the show next week. Let's talk about democracy. And I think that the reason I was so passionate about it is because it feels so abstract sometimes. It's like you say to someone, what's democracy? And they just sort of go, oh, it's just voting. But it's so much more than that. And so I tease and say, let's have democracy for dinner, because it is in every single thing we do. And voting is but one aspect of it. So we're going to have Harmony Labs next week, and they're going to give us a really, really fun lesson about all the research and polling that they do on democracy. So I'm thrilled for next week.
Yeah, and I'm going to say to everybody in this room, I'm excited. David Pepper is coming back. And if you recall, David Pepper was the former chair of the Democratic Party. Ohio is a hot mess, but it also is something we should be watching, because it's signaling to us and showing us where we don't want to go, right? Ohio is just there. It's been an awful mess. And now to shut down some even more voters, they have an amendment on the ballot. So David has been just on fire talking about democracy. And I think we have to continue in that fight. And also, I think what's kind of cool about it for this room is that we need to look back to the past to how we can tackle this, what the abolitionists have done, what, we've talked about this before, that sometimes people that didn't even have rights fought for rights. You know, how did they do it? And in the case of what's happening in our country, it's so, with this election, I keep telling people in Virginia, I got a call from somebody out of state, and I'm like, you guys are all worried about 2024. I get it. You're all fascinated with Trump and Biden, DeSantis. I get it. But Virginia, I'm going to say it again, is where it matters. This election will determine who wins president. So if you care about who 2024, you got to care about Virginia. So everybody got to lean in. If you're in this room, get involved. And after we get through, Fennell, this primary that's just killing everybody, I know we're tired of it and we want to get through it, but we know it's important because some of these Senate races, especially LaSharice Aird, we need her to win that Senate seat. We need strong Democratic voices in the Senate to hold that damn wall.
Yeah, we do. Well, I think you ended it right there. So yeah, that's it.
Boom. Drop the mic. Boom.
Drop the mic.
Yeah, we do. We need it. So we need to lean in where we need to lean in and not get caught up in the bull that can pull us these different ways. So I just want to tell everybody, yes, Glenn Youngkin is going to run for president. So we got to take him on here. He's done harmful things. He's hiding behind it. So let's make sure that we own the narrative today and we learn so much. So thank you. I'm excited. Oh, what? You have the
one more thing. I want to jump on your Glenn Youngkin thing for just a minute because I want people to be thinking. I want to jump on it. So I want people to think about it because if you think about Florida, which is horrible, he follows Florida. If you think about some of the most horrible candidates who ran in 2022, he stumped for them. And if you think about what Claire talked about today, climate, he pulled us out of RGG. If you think about what's horrible in terms of, yeah, exactly. Thank you. So all of these things, he is just like it. So yes. We have got to bring him down, and we will bring him down from the grassroots.
And I think the biggest thing is that we need to make sure lately, and the latest statement he made, which was he was crybabying about the indictment of Trump and comparing it to parents' rights. Okay, let's make sure that we just make sure that he owns that and people see that we need to stay strong in Virginia. We need to win our majority. We need to keep our message on point. So thank you. You're looking fabulous in that red. I just love it. You're rocking it. So I can't wait to hear from the guests that we'll be hearing from later, especially such Rose and Jessica. And I'm on the front end. So I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye. All right. How exciting is that? So if you've not been on the show before, welcome, welcome, welcome. I realize that I may have skipped over some of our rules of the road. Some housekeeping is, this is a great friendly audience. We're glad you're here. Use the chat, share your stuff, put some great calls to action in there or what's going on in your world, but make sure you keep it very civil. And if you get, if people get a little nasty, we like to kick them out. So just stay very cool in the chat. And then also our favorite time is the after chat. So after this show, we continue really getting deeper and deeper in the subject matter. So after 1 o'clock, we shut down the Facebook and we just are allowed, guests can come up, and they're not guests. Our guests will be here, some of them, but our people in the audience will get to share and talk about what's on their mind and ask guests some questions. So we hope you stay with us. That would be awesome. And of course, lastly, how can I not do a pitch for us? We have a Patreon account. You can be a member, and it's so great to have the members in the room. Thank you for supporting us for just $5 a month, $10 a month. And we have some $25 people a month that support our show. That's how we do our work. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I want to make sure I do my housekeeping, Robin. I think I forgot that in the beginning. So anyways, let's get to our first guest. Let's talk about, like Claire said, our intern, what's on the young people's mind is not drag shows, but it's climate. So let's bring up Tim and Paige. Hello again. So we have still people joining. So let me introduce you. Tim Cywinski, Communications Lead, Sierra Club Virginia Chapter, and also Paige Wesselink. You're the Digital Outreach Coordinator. So I'm going to start with you, Paige, and just talk about your work, talk about what you guys are doing, and then we will get further with Tim and some of the subject matter.
Yeah, of course. At the chapter, God, we work on usually the way that Tim and I do this. As we said, we have a podcast that we do, but we really love to banter back and forth about the work that we do and the way that we're really natural the way that we talk normally. But yeah, right now, God, we work on so many different things, especially with narrative. I mean, everything that we do, we love to frame it up in the right way. And the way when we talk about climate, which is really what Tim and I were talking about before we even came on here, is just how much what we do is very climate and environmental based. But when we talk about it, we don't ever really mention the words climate. We mention environment, but not in the sense of like global warming or environmental technical terms. It's really in the sense of like just aspects of like that people can relate to and language that people can relate to. And specifically how that works on my end is I get to do the digital side of things. So when you get an email from us, it's normally me that's sending it, and we send it to about like 70,000 people if it's a statewide email, which is a big group of people. It's a lot of people to relate to, a lot of people to get on board for something. But that also gives us potential to get, you know, thousands of action takers on one thing that we're supporting. So, and the way that we do that, Tim and I both do, is creating language, and Tim is going to talk about this more, but framing things up, because I don't want to speak too much for him and his expertise, but framing things up in a way that is value-based rather than fact-based. So
let's get to that. I think when we're talking about owning the narrative, and you're just so spectacular at it, Tim, tell us, share about that strategy. Let's talk about from just your point of view, just tee this up for the audience when you talk about owning the narrative, why that's important, why, like Paige was saying, some of this language you avoid, like we say climate change, you say no. I mean, so yeah, get to that.
Well, for sure. So quickly, I'll just say we say climate change, we say pollution. That's about the mental shortcuts you want to create in everybody's minds, right? And Paige mentioned framing. The idea of framing is like, we're not just trying to get people to think about one moment in time and one way to interpret an event. We're trying to build a paradigm, how people should be thinking about what the information they're about to be seeing for right now and for later on. And that's how you beat back the bullshit that you were talking about in the intro, is you don't want people to see one thing and just responding to one moment and then have Glenn Youngkin change his narrative and then they go, oh, well, that's different. No, you want to be able to undermine those by interjecting some values that are based off on the frame, the entire frame of something. So when we send an email, for example, which is one of our most effective ways of getting people to respond directly to decision makers, we never start, the first sentence is never what we're actually going to be talking about. It's never the subject matter. It is a frame, and a frame looks like no child should ever have to breathe poisonous air. Or when leaders fail to put our needs before polluters, it's up to us to hold them accountable. Those are frames. And that way, everything after that, whether it's context or an explanation, that is the value that we're holding forward. And what we find is that when we mention climate change or add in too many facts and figures, we have a rule where we can only mention one statistic in any email that we ever send. And that's only to show the value. So it's like, if we're talking about a polluting project that they're proposing in Richmond, in one of our poorer areas that has very lack of green space, and removing it and eliminating it completely, and a lot of the communities being involved with it, we're saying that you're eliminating this green space in an area that has so little of it. And it's because it's a community of color. So the frame there or the value there is about justice, and people inherently understand fairness and justice, and they want to be on the right side of it. And what that also does is, if you disagree with me, then you're disagreeing with the value. You're disagreeing with the values that I'm presenting. So again, what I always say in like comms, if we're doing our best work, then the polluters are defending themselves. Then the people in power who are acting in bad faith are defending themselves. Always want them to play defense. And they'll try to do that to you. And again, you just have to question the values, question where they're coming from. You don't want people but you don't think that every community deserves clean air. You don't think that every community deserves to have, or that our future deserves to have a livable future just for the sake that polluters can make extra bucks. Like that's how you turn the narrative around and make sure that they're the ones playing defense.
No, I like that. And Paige, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I love the way that Tim the way that he explains what we do is it's always just straight to the point and just it's so digestible. But I just also want to add that It's the way that we message and what we're arguing for, like Tim said, the values that we're arguing for. It's easy. It's access to clean water, access to clean air, you know, it's things that everyone should be for. And if you're not, then I do question your values. But yeah, it's that's the nice part about what we do. You don't need to overcomplicate it. And I think that in the environmental world, we do have this history of overcomplicating our language. I don't know how many times all of us have sat in on some sort of webinar or teaching or whatever it might be, and there's some crazy big word like decarbonization, and you're like, what the is that? And it's just, you know, eliminating pollution. Yeah.
I was just going to mention that the interns earlier talked about how they're mostly on Instagram. Paige is an Instagram guru for us. She's actually made sure that we have a younger audience on that side of things now.
No, so that's, you know, that's another point is how to get that message out. But I really want to talk more about owning the narrative, because I think in this room we have talked about this, how important it is. So you've talked about language and you're talking about values, and I want to kind of stay in that because I think it's just so interesting to me when we've talked about climate and people say climate change, or we want to talk about it. And so how do we learn these words? What do you suggest when people are starting as activists or trying to communicate on the doors, trying to communicate in emails? Where do we start? It's always framing it in the values. You know, walk us through that again, because I think it's so important.
Sure. So, and we're not judging anyone for not being in the environmental or climate bubble in the face. In fact, you know, before I got this job, I was very much outside of it. I knew it on the abstract. Right. So you have to have, again, you want to do it with frames, trigger words, pollution, quickly, everyone knows that's bad, and right. A good sense of onboarding. So when we talk, if we're going to introduce the idea of climate change to someone who kind of knows about it but doesn't really, look, at the end of the day, projects that are destroying our planet are hurting people and families' lives and livelihoods right now. People right. who are on the front lines of pollution, the same pollution that's robbing us and our children and our generations of a livable future, that's going on. And then people in the fossil fuel industry are getting rich off of that. There's so many things that right there that go into it that people should automatically want to associate values with them, and they know they want to be on our side, not on the side of people who want to be in favor of continuing and perpetuating the violence and the oppression that the fossil fuel system has manifested in our society. So that's one way to start it. So if you want to own the narrative, make sure that people are framed from the very beginning, from the genesis of this idea, with the right values, with the right idea of how this actually looks. We talk to people all the time who think it can't possibly be this bad, and then they get more and more into this and see, you know, from both political parties and all of our government agencies, how messed up things can get because of the outsized influence of the fossil fuel industry. And you just start to do, you know, pieces by piece. But again, it has to be, here's the on-ramp, here's the values that you followed to get to the idea of climate justice, where we can build a future that doesn't leave anybody behind. And that's not a question of technology. That is a question of political will. And it's up to us to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think I even see that in this, when we've talked about in the space of reproductive rights, right?
Absolutely.
Really, you start with that value that government has no role in this, and it shouldn't, like these values that a lot of people agree with is what you're kind of saying.
Yeah. Yes, I think the rhetorical tools that we're talking about right now are not exclusive to climate change. In fact, we want them, and climate change, in the idea of this, and the way that Paige and I talk about this is, we all have commonalities in the movements that we're doing, and the through line is justice, and that's where we have to be centered on.
No, right.
And everything that we talk about.
Yeah.
So right, yeah, go ahead, Paige.
No, I was just going to say that, yeah, that is probably the biggest thing that we focus on is there's always something that we're working on is always going to tie into something else that someone else is working on that's important. And we really try to find those connections to other groups. Yeah. It's top of mind.
And that's important because the climate issue is an issue that if we're going to solve it, it's going to take all of us. And that means that we have to be all in for one another, whether it's environmental or social justice or education or reproductive rights. We have to be there as one, you know, consistent narrative on justice. And that's how we build a better world that's not just one that is livable, but one that works for everybody.
No, I love that word, the center is justice. And I think that it really helps you kind of center then, like you said, any kind of framing and value, if you just know that's sort of the center of it. And then in the sense of platforms, does that change at all when you are, say, getting out your message? Do you feel like from email to Instagram to just talking at the doors, is there a different way that you do this with?
Yes, I'll take this. No, yes, we on email, you're gonna get those bigger messaging where it's a longer email, and we give more details, we give more context, we have more that's involved with the email. On Instagram, it's really more straightforward, and a lot of the time what I try to do on my end is tie it into what's going on around us in this current moment, and honestly what's going on that's trending. And it can be so silly. It doesn't always have to be this serious, we're all going to die and you're not going to have access to clean water tomorrow, and if you don't act right now, have fun and starve. Like, it's not that on Instagram. It's just, I like to get a little fun with it and not take ourselves too seriously. So one of the things that we've done as an example is there was a time when there was that Adam Driver clip where he sipped a little spoon in this show. He sips a little spoon, he goes, "Good soup." Like a thing that was going on for a long time. And anyway, we put that on our story, and a picture of soup, and then we put like a link that said "good soup." We got more clicks on that than anything else we posted, and it was a really important action alert that we were posting. I'm pretty sure it was when Andrew Wheeler was going to be head of all environmental stuff in Virginia, basically. And he was a former coal lobbyist and under the Trump for the EPA, and it was horrible. So we got like over 1,000 action takers on that action alert. And one of the things that supported it was "good soup." Good soup. That wouldn't work on email, but it worked great.
Yeah, and I think that underscores the importance of like listening to something you don't necessarily understand, like the strategies. When Paige pitched that to me, I was like, I don't see how this is going to work, but let's go for it. Because I don't assume to know more about Instagram than she does. And of course, like she said, like we had like a 25% bump in the amount of action takers for that just on Instagram alone. And so it's really, again, about like trying new strategies, but the values still stay the same, because once they click that "good soup" one, Andrew Wade, who wants more mercury in your water and who's a former coal lobbyist, Governor Youngkin wants to give him the top environmental spot in Virginia. Yeah. That's all people need to know. So getting attention is a whole other conversation, but once we get there, then we can own the narrative. But Paige is a savant.
We'll hear from Rose later, and I know there is a different way at the doors. You're really meeting someone face to face, and then there's that value of trying to make that connection right away. That's a little different. Before we end up, I didn't know if anybody sent anything to you they were struggling with. Did anybody in the room had some kind of messaging or some kind of issue that they've had a hard time? Did anybody send you anything, Tim, or do you want to take one of your own?
So we got two things. So one person just said, Tim and Paige have one stat they think is best to use for climate. And that stat would be that the majority of people who suffer the most impacts of pollution are the ones who contribute the least. Oh, that is just a fact. Yeah, and the vast majority of those people are children, by the way. And the vast majority of those people, at least 2/3, are people of color. And that is people who are being targeted, not for any other reason of just where they happen to be located, the economic racist systems that have pushed them in economic areas that have been there. And that's the system that we have. That is a reflection of every single thing that happens when we let fossil fuel companies dictate policy. Yeah. And then someone mentioned something about owning the narrative with how do you push back when they're really doing this bullshit with LGBTQ plus attacks through policy. Mm-hmm. And we could deconstruct that, a whole bunch of it, but like, again, frame up the narrative and take it, which is like, why do you want policy that bullies kids? I don't think the government should have any right in bullying children. And that is exactly what Glenn Youngkin is trying to do.
Yeah, kind of put that in the forward. And it's sort of like pivoting out because they want to drag you to certain kind of conversations, but you have to sort of turn it back.
They want to make it about parents' rights, and what we're actually talking about is personal rights, and talking about what kind of country do we want to be, what kind of state do we want to be, and what kind of values do we need to have. Yeah. And if you want to try to hide the fact that you're bullying kids under this guise of parents' rights, then if you entertain that notion, as ridiculous as it is, then you're losing. Don't let them have that. That's not what this is about, and that's not what this is about. You're actually just hiding the fact that you're being hateful, and hate has no place in our policies.
Ooh, I like that. Taste that soup. That was good.
That's going to be our new tagline. Our new tagline is taste that soup.
Taste that soup, no bullshit. Okay, so thank you for being here. Now I want to say something before you leave. Paige and Tim are going to be doing this particular workshop training at where? The Women's Summit. Woo! July, that's going to be, we have a special bonus night. So July 21st is a Friday, but you'll be there July 22nd. We have such a great lineup for 35 workshops. And if you guys, this would be one, just show up for this one. And this is, to me, what you guys are doing is so great. So thank you. And thank you for participating in the Women's Summit. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I hope your mom is coming.
I'll let her know.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Bye, Tim. So, I mean, gosh, that was really great. I have to say, truly, the Women's Summit, we have over 35 workshops. For those new in the room, not only do we do this show every week, we produce it. We've been doing this since 2017. We've been producing a huge event that's a powerhouse event, 2 or 3 days. We just it never gets enough. Even when we went online during COVID, I think we did an 11-day event. That's just because that's just who we are. But anyways, we'll be sending that, put that in the chat. Tickets right now, great rate for tickets. So you need to get your ticket in your hotel room. You don't want to wait. Even if you can plug in for 1 day or one part or the whole thing, the ticket price is so affordable, and we have scholarship and we have student rates. So all are welcome, and we hope we see you there. Now, next up, talking about Freedom Virginia and telling your story and the power of that, we have JENAYA Moore, from Richmond Organizer, and also Vanessa Borg. We have Loudoun Organizers here talking about Freedom Virginia. Who wants to tee up about the mission? And then we'll get it more into storytelling.
So JENAYA, you want to take the mission?
Yes, I could definitely go ahead and take that. Again, thank you guys for having us today. So Freedom Virginia, we are a nonpartisan organization, and basically we advocate and fight for all Virginia families just to thrive. As simple as economic security, paid sick leave. One of our biggest pushes that we've been advocating for a while is affordable health care and housing. So basically, we are just pushing it out here through voter engagement. We also do a lot of story collection, which we will talk about more when it comes to personal stories and also why they matter. And also legislative advocacy. So we are always very much present when it does come to our legislative session. This past session, again, we were down in Richmond, and we were advocating for PDAB, which is our Prescription Drug Affordability Board, where we partnered with Senator Chap Peterson and Delegate Delaney. And basically that is just to establish a board of healthcare experts to cap prescription drug costs. As we know, prescription drugs costs because of big pharma are sky high and super out of pocket, if I may do say so myself. And, it just doesn't make sense that Virginia families, it is a nationwide thing, but definitely in Virginia, we are feeling the brunt of how high costs are for people just to get their prescriptions, just to survive and take care of themselves, or even for people to afford it for their loved ones. So that's just a quick little gist about Freedom Virginia and our mission.
Yeah, thank you. And how long have you been around?
So funny story.
I like a funny story.
So I actually started my journey with Freedom Virginia as telling my story. I met with Raina, who is our phenomenal executive director, and got introduced to the rest of the team. And I went and I was invited to a press conference that we did have during session, in the very beginning of session, when we were, again, discussing and introducing the PDAB bill. And then from there, I went to tell my story about how effective the bill being passed would be for me as a chronic asthmatic, and then just seeing how COVID changed a lot, not even just within my financial livelihood, but when it did come to affording my own prescription drugs, specifically more so my asthma inhaler. And then from there, I advocated with Freedom, and then I became a full-time part of the team, and it's been the best experience. And with a great team at that, I mean, you can't beat it.
Yeah, well, that goes right into storytelling. Thank you, JENAYA, for that. Vanessa, why don't we get into storytelling in our last so many minutes here? Talk about how the power of that is. And I just love that's how you got involved, because it just shows the power of storytelling. So tell us how you use that, how you collect these stories, and then how effective they are.
Right. So I love that Paige and Tim were talking about making sure your values are centered, because one of the ways that we approach making sure that our values are centered and we're able to connect and empathize those values with who we're talking to is through personal storytelling. If you sit across the table from someone and share your struggle and ask them, like, you're my representative, what are you doing to make this better for your constituents who are suffering from this price gouging? How can they look at you and say that it's not a concern? So one of the ways that we center those stories is by just talking to people around the Commonwealth and hearing from them the nuances of this issue. The diabetes medication that the name brand might not work for someone, and they might be stuck with the generic that's not covered by insurance. Or someone has a specific type of epilepsy that only responds to one particular medication, and with insurance, it's $800 a month still. So there are ways that people fall through the cracks of this system, and when they share their stories, that really helps us educate lawmakers about the nuances of this issue. And I love that I can connect to this approach, this storytelling approach, from my background. I come from a background in theater and the performance arts. And when we would sit down and create our calendar of events for the year, we would ask, why these shows, why now, and why told in this way? And I think that that's really important for when we're approaching storytelling to create political change, that we start from those questions as well. Why are we telling this story? Why are we telling it now? And why are we telling it in this particular way? Because that can really kind of help us hone our message and figure out what our goals are. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. I'm going to drop our handle for our social medias, my event this weekend coming up to Canvas for District 31, and then also our prescription drug affordability storybook, because this is a collection of some of the stories that we heard from Virginians across the Commonwealth. And every member of the General Assembly got this year. So this is kind of a really good look at how we use these stories that people share with us and what impact they can have.
No, I think it's true. And so what you do is then part of this, your organization is really spending time in the General Assembly, lobbying on certain bills to make, especially around housing. And just as we wrap up, some effective ways you've been getting out your story. I saw that a truck was going around that you rented that had, the neon, or what do you call this, the sign on it, and you were parked and you were talking. Tell me about that. JENAYA, who was there? Was that in Richmond? Was that by you?
So we actually had different locations. So we did a bus tour, is actually what it was. So we did a billboard truck tour, basically to support the Senate budget plan. We first were in Virginia Beach, then we were in Loudoun County, then we were in Henrico, and then we were in Newport News, and then today was our final stop of the tour in Harrisonburg. So we had a nice little tour just to go around.
And actually are really good locations in our Commonwealth too.
Yes, yeah, they're like really good hitters just to hit on each important part of the state. So
and all areas really strongly impacted by not properly funding our schools in this budget again.
Right. And that was about the public education and funding, correct?
Yes.
No, I love it. So there also, and one thing I'll say before we move on to the next segment is there is this storytelling. We're talking about owning the narrative, and we talk about all these different ways to get the story out. And there's these campaigns that are really also effective, like the soup thing on Instagram. But in this case, taking a billboard truck around and people being able to see it kind of gets people interested. And I think that's pretty brilliant.
Yes, absolutely. And also, aside from the links that Vanessa dropped, I'm going to go ahead and drop another link as well. So in the chat, I also dropped our specific story collection Google form. So in the midst of us collecting stories, we collect stories throughout the entire year to build up for session. It's not just something that we do around that time. We want to make sure that we are listening to all constituents and all Virginia families during the session seasons and outside of the session seasons, because either way, this is something that all policies, specifically the ones that we advocate for, are impacting Virginian families 365 days a year, not just for 2.5 months. No. So definitely, if there is anybody even, on the call today that has a story, definitely feel free to share. We would love to connect with you guys and, make sure that your stories are being heard.
Yes. Citizen advocacy is so important and so impactful. So if we can help advocate for you and share your story, we really want to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I love it. I love what you guys do, and you will be at the summit as well.
Yes.
Session. And that, it's no surprise that you're here today, because we really believe that it is about owning the narrative, and you guys are doing it so well. So thank you for being here, and such a good, cause, really helping people, really making that change that we're fighting for. So thank you so much for everything you do, and stick around if you can for the after chat. Maybe some people have some questions for you. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I want to just do one more quick plug. Fennell, if you want to come up real quick, because I know we just need to get going. So let's just say that make sure you get your ticket for the Women's Summit.
Get your ticket. There's going to be fantastic workshops. We have one. Come to the summit.
You're doing one with Lindley from Rural Ground Game talking
Linda and Roberta, who are awesome. We're doing Busting the Rural Myth. We know that these selections can't be won without getting a really, really good number of voters from rural areas. So you got to come. And I want to say to JENAYA and Vanessa that I met Eddie a couple of weeks ago, and he promises me that he's coming to the Eastern Shore with that bus. So I'm waiting.
Oh, good.
Oh, fantastic. Eddie is amazing.
That's great. No, and I know we have sessions on the rural understanding that, even a double session on that, how to work in that space. And we also have another one on messaging with Antonia. Yes, talking about messaging as well. So it's going to be fantastic. All right, I'll let you go. Bye. And I can't wait to hear Rose and Jessica Craven.
Yes, so I am so excited. Please bring up Rose. For those of you who are just joining, Rose is an activist. She is the best canvasser in the world, part of WOFA. So Rose, I know that I talk to you about this all the time, and that is that people open the door for you. They might not open it for anybody else, but they open it for you. So tell us your secrets about canvassing.
Well, my secret is I don't know what's going to happen when I knock on the door. I said, I might as well just go ahead and try it. And I have the biggest smile on my face. And I really go in there with a heartfelt feeling that just give me a few minutes of your time, a few seconds, and tell me if you're ready to vote and why you should vote for my candidate. And I have had such great experiences going all over the place: Loudoun County, Prince William County, Pittsburgh, Doylestown, Raleigh, West Virginia. And every experience, I gained something from them as much as they gained something from me. I gained a knowledge of their community, about their values, and how we're not so much different from each other. But I also gained about people who have been disenfranchised. Like, for instance, one of my first experiences back in 2003 is I knocked on a door in a Black community outside of Old Town Alexandria. When you think of Old Town Alexandria as an exotic, wonderful community, but just a few miles away, there's this community that felt they were forgotten. And I was knocking on a door of a torn screen door, and this woman who was probably in her 60s at the time, she says, well, what do you want? And I said, I'm asking you if you're ready to vote, and I've got a candidate for you for delegate. And she said, nobody's ever come to my door. Nobody ever gives a damn about us. And I thought, oh my gosh, there are actually communities that really feel that way. And we started talking, and she started telling me about the things that she struggled. things, something I didn't know, and I gained knowledge from that. And she realized that someone actually cared. It was somebody, it wasn't just about voting, it was about listening and learning. And I still to this day remember that moment. And it takes me to the next place. And I bring those experiences with me.
So
and
Rose,
so
tell me, so for somebody who might be shy about canvassing, it seems like you take your whole self to the door, and it's not about the canvas, it's about you and your experience and what you're bringing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, I am a natural introvert. People don't believe it, but I am. But I have grown as a person. And the thing about canvassing is different because it's one-on-one, which introverts are very good about talking to one-on-one people. And it allows me to knock on that door and be myself. I think it is so important to be authentic, because people can see right through with you if you're just reading a script. And it's to listen to people. I've heard so many people tell me their stories or say something that I'm completely surprised about. But because I come across as someone who cares, who's not there just to say, give me your vote, but what are the things that you care about? What are your issues? And I'll take that back to the campaign. And there are some campaigns that will just use it and reach out to certain groups. Like, for instance, Abigail Spanberger. We were getting one door after another. A smaller group was very upset with her, and they couldn't really explain what it was. Well, she went back to smaller group and listened to them, and she gained from them what were their beef, and she acted on it, and she won them over, and got their support. So it's so important to listen to them and to bring it back to the campaign. One of the great stories I heard about was that I experienced was in Doylestown, and I was on my turf was this community that was a low income. And I knocked on this door, and I looked at it, was someone in their 80s, female, Republican. And I'm like, why would I get to this door? My thing is, whatever, go ahead and do it. I'm willing to face anything. And I knocked on her door, and it was this tiny little woman, Caucasian, and she says, what do you want? And I said, what I want, to be blunt, is I want your vote for Fetterman, Shapiro, and these local candidates. What I want is to say that we, as a Democrat, care about you. We care about you when it comes to healthcare system, when it comes to your voting rights. We are doing everything. We have agendas. And I can't say your Republican Party is the same thing. What have they delivered to you? Do you have Medicaid expansion? If you did, it's because of Democrats. Yes, we have inflation, but we're fighting it. And she looked at me, she goes, you know what I want to say to you? I go, what? And she yelled at the top of her voice to her neighbors, I want to say to you and to every one of my neighbors, that Trump is a damn crook. And you guys out there, and she was loud. I never heard of it. It was so loud. She said, you people, my neighbors, wake up. He doesn't give a damn about you.
Oh.
I was so surprised. She goes, so I did. And then she looked at me, she goes, did you like that? I go, I loved it. I loved it. She goes, you know what? I was suckered in to be a Republican all my life. And I've had it. I can't even afford my prescription drugs. And I'm glad you knocked on my door. I don't get a Democrat knocking on my door, but I want to tell you, I'm a Democrat first. I only got she says, probably maybe 10, 15 years of my life. At least in these last 10, 15 years of life, I'll be supporting a party that cares about me.
Wonderful.
And I walked away just overblown. And you never know until you try knocking on a door. You never know what's going to come out of somebody's mouth. And it just surprises me every time.
Well, that is fantastic. And we'll end it there. Rose, we hope that you're going to stay for the after chat, because I'm sure that there is a lot that
I will be. I just want to tell you, I'll be doing a workshop at the Women's Summit, and it's about conversational canvassing. And I'll have my stories with me.
have your stories with you. Thank you so much, Rose.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And now we're going to bring up Jess Craven. And I am so excited to bring up Jess. She is a TikTok influencer. What you should know about Jess is that she has more than 250,000 followers. So that is pretty doggone amazing. And not only that, she has Chop Wood. I always get the name wrong. Chop Wood, Carry Water. And I subscribe to that as well. So Jess, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody.
Oh my goodness. I feel sort of like this is like a real celebrity. So I'm thrilled here. We're going to talk about your TikTok, and we're going to talk about the way that you do them. So Robin, we're going to start by showing one of Jess's TikToks.
So Republicans just passed their budget bill, and Jesus Christ, I don't know how they sleep at night. This bill is long, but let me just break down some of the most egregious things that it would do. If this bill were signed into law, we would lose 2,000 Customs and Border Patrol agents, 11,000 FBI personnel, and hundreds of local law enforcement officers. So much for tough on crime. This bill would drastically cut veterans' health care. This would mean about 30 million fewer outpatient visits. And let's talk about rail safety. These Republican cuts would lead to 1,000 fewer safety inspections per year. 30,000 miles of track would remain uninspected every year because of these cuts, and we'd have to shut down 125 air traffic control towers. But there's more. If this bill were enacted, 80,000 young people would lose their Pell Grants, 300,000 kids would lose access to Head Start, and 108,000 teachers would have to be eliminated. Now let's talk about jobs. You know, the 140,000 jobs that we just picked up because of the Inflation Reduction Act? Republicans want to send those all back overseas and also raise our energy prices. Then there's Section 8 housing. Under this plan, hundreds of thousands of people, including veterans and seniors, would be evicted. But wait, there's more. This plan will take away food assistance from 1 million seniors and 1.2 million women with small children. Then there's the healthcare access, which 2 million people would lose if this bill were enacted. And there's so much more. This bill that Republicans just passed basically unanimously is a catalog of cruelty, y'all. Also, they can protect billionaires and corporations from paying higher taxes. And let's remember that the only thing standing in the way of them getting their way is Democrats. So I suggest you vote for Moore at your soonest opportunity.
That is pretty fabulous. That is fabulous. Facts for everyone. Choose what you want and run with it. Just how did you start doing this? And tell us a little bit about how you decide what you're going to talk about and how you're going to talk about it.
Well, that is a great question. Hi, everybody. So the fact that I'm on TikTok at all is a total and complete accident. This was totally unintentional. I think it was because of COVID. During the 2020 elections, I was trying to recruit phone bankers. We weren't canvassing, if you'll remember, which normally I do a lot of canvassing, but I was trying to recruit more people to come phone bank because I was running a bunch of phone banks. And I had a friend, I have 3 very old friends who I'm on a video chat with every day. There's a point to this story, I promise. We use this app called Marco Polo, and we talk to each other on video. And she's votes liberal, but she doesn't pay a lot of attention to politics. So every once in a while on Marco Polo, I would explain things to her in a very, just because she doesn't know a lot about politics. I would keep it very simple. And she was very into TikTok. And one day she said, you need to go on TikTok and you need to explain things the way you explain them to me here on Marco Polo. And I was like, TikTok is not my thing. No, I'm not going to do that. And then one day, I don't know why, I just decided to go on again, because I was looking for phone bankers. So I started making a couple of videos, and I started talking about phone banking. I was doing a ton of phone banking. And as we just heard, if you do a lot of phone banking or canvassing, you'll start having amazing stories because it's just an incredible thing to do. And you have amazing interactions. So I would go on and sort of talk about, oh, you won't believe what just happened on this phone bank. Like I helped somebody, in whatever, Georgia get, I'm going to mail them their vote by mail ballot application and whatever, the human stories. I don't know. And it just started, I started picking up followers, and it was weird because I wasn't, I don't, as you can tell, I've never been very, I'm not very polished. I don't, put on makeup for TikTok. I don't care a huge amount about my production value. I didn't get a ring light until I'd been doing it for 2 years, and I only got one because a friend bought one and delivered it to my door and was like, please do something about your lighting. So, but I do, I guess there, on TikTok, there seems to be a sort of, people will respond to authenticity, and they respond to sort of passion. And I do have that. Like, I am passionate about what I do. And they were really into these stories about phone banking. And then I started realizing, because I also have a newsletter, Chop Wood, Carry Water, where I really try to get people to call their representatives. So I started calling my representatives on TikTok. And that also got a really huge response, because there are a lot of people who are like, well, I know that I'm supposed to call my representative, but I've literally never seen someone do it. So I would do the whole thing, dial the number, show them asking for the representative, do the whole thing. And it that got a lot of response. Anyway, so it just, I'm a sort of like a teacher and an enthusiast at heart, and I found a place where there were willing students, essentially, is what happened, is that there were people who were interested in what I had to say. And so that's mostly how I got on there. So that's the answer to that question.
Well, they are amazing. I had the most difficult time choosing which one, and I know we're going to put them all in there. I hope that you will get however many people are on this call today, because if you're not on it, you don't have to be on it. You can just listen to them, and then you can share the information. And I want to just say also, for those who don't subscribe to your Chop Wood, it is excellent. It is another place that's chock full of information. So we're almost out of time. Is there any last thing you want to say, because you're so good at this, in the last 10 seconds I have?
Oh gosh. Well, yeah, I think that what I would say is that and so many people have talked about it today, is it's about messaging. People constantly complain about the Democrats' messaging. And the truth of the matter is because we don't use propaganda, we don't have access to the same messaging sources that Republicans do. And every single one of us needs to be the messenger. And one of the most important things we can do is stop apologizing for being Democrats. Be like Simon Rosenberg, be like Robert Hubble, be like all the people who consistently repeat the fact that with Democrats, things do get better. And it is time for us to amplify that message. And that is why so much of what I do now are like attack ads on Republicans, or sort of promotions of what's happening with Democrats, because people get their news from TikTok and Instagram. And if we're not talking about what is happening and what good is being done and what crap is being done on the other side, they're not going to hear it. So it is our responsibility to get that message out there. And if you think that you are not capable of being a messenger, then amplify someone who is. But it's really, really important that we start shouting from the rooftops what we are doing that is great and what they are doing that is horrible.
All I can say is amen. And thank you so much. Catherine, I'll give it to you.
I want to ask real quick, Jess, do you have time to stay in the after chat with us?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, sure.
I do like because I did want to get to the heart, and we do have a few more minutes for it. It's getting the heart of what you're saying. And I love what you just said. Let's just talk real quick. Just give me an idea. Where do you get all your facts from? Do you follow Simon on his Hopian Chronicles to get all those good facts? I mean, how long does that take you to put all that together when you do a TikTok? So you are correct. I'm just curious.
So that's a really good question. I mean, they actually can take a really long time to put together.
Okay.
That one that you guys showed was a lot of work, but I work 10 hours a day, probably 6 days a week, or 5.5 days a week. I try to take some time off to be with my family, but a lot of that time is reading. And I also sit in on a lot of meetings. I sit in on a lot of messaging meetings. There's a progressive mobilization call I sit in twice a week. And I get the White House sends me talking points as a social media creator. And so I have to sort of take all of that and then find news articles. It's a lot of research, to be honest. It's a ton of research.
Well, I love that. So I think for people in the room, because they're tuning in to find out how to own it, what you're really telling people, the work that it's a lot of work. You have to have the facts and you have to do the research. Tell me again, so you actually, because you're an influencer, you actually get talking points so you know that they've been vetted and you can use them quickly. How do people in the room get access to some of this information? What would you suggest?
That's a really good question. Well, yes, I do get talking points from now. I am included in the White House briefings, but that's a tricky thing because I got really burned by that right after the budget agreement for the debt ceiling. I was invited to a meeting that night, and we were given a very, very thorough amount of information on that debt ceiling agreement, which I then went and made a TikTok about, except they had left out the Mountain Valley pipeline. So I got spun by the White House, and then I turned around and made a TikTok that got 100,000 views overnight, and I had essentially given people incomplete information, and it was a very good reminder that everything needs to be double checked. But right. For the average person, I don't know. I read Robert Hubble every day. Joyce Vance, Simon Rosenberg. Substack is a wealth of information. I barely look at mainstream media anymore because there is just so much really good, thorough information being delivered on Substack. So I would say all of that. And also you can subscribe to whitehouse.gov and they will send you, like Biden is doing I have my quibbles with him, especially environmentally, but he's doing a lot of really astonishingly good stuff that nobody knows about. And you can subscribe to White House for emails that will keep you updated on what they're doing. But yeah, there's a lot of information out there. So yeah, no easy answer to that question.
And I would just say also Greenfly is really good information and really great graphics. And I think the point here is that Jess is doing all the work so you don't have to.
Yeah,
well,
Greenfly
is yeah,
it's good. It's a little incomplete. I constantly nag them to put more content up there, but yeah, it is good. It is good. But yes, I try to do that work so that you guys don't have to. And one section of my newsletter is called Spread the Word, and I just try to put something there that I have heard the Democrats are trying to get out, and so that you can help amplify.
That's what we do here too. And that's what we tell people, like our Esther does a badass briefing every week. It goes out and she really is able to just put all the information in. We tell people, you don't have to, just have to open up that email. I mean, but the work that it takes, like you said, getting it together is important. And I'm sure people in this room listen to Heather Richardson
Yes, she's a must read.
She's a must read. And every day when I read that, because she is, again, a historian and researcher, and you feel confident. I feel confident that she said footnoted that, that we can use that. So thank you so much. And Fennell, I know this has been great. I'm glad you can stay with us on the other side of being in the after chat where we can talk more, because we'll talk for another 45 minutes. I know us. So let's say thank you to all the guests today. I hope you learned to own something. Owning the narrative is so important in our work. I want to thank you to all our guests and also everybody that puts together the show. This team is amazing. Fennell, Robin, Stair, Heidi, Dennis, Michelle, Laura, and our content concierges, Julie Galdo, Alvina McKell, Sally Renwalt, and our summer interns. Let's give a big round of applause to Allison Bonnier and Claire Chow. So great you're going to be with us. How cool is that? And I hope you stick with us to the other side. Next week, it's going to be all about democracy, all about saving it. David Pepper and also Fennell, who is the other guest? Because I'm blanking.
Harmony Labs.
Ricky, say the name. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody, have a great Friday. Primaries are almost over. Make sure you jump into some race that makes a difference and you own it all weekend. Let's run the credits and get to the other side and see you next week.